Sister Rona, what's the plan? I mean, will you like to introduce about that we are starting our conversation, or you want me to? I will. Okay. I will start the conversation with a brief introduction about what we're going to do, and
we are live. Yeah.
We can start.
Yes. Give it 10 seconds and then start.
Okay.
Start.
Hello, everybody, and good evening, and a warm welcome to Spiritual Conversation with Sister Rona. Before I get into the topic, I don't think Sister Rona needs any introduction, but very briefly, Sister Rona is a medical doctor, but for the last 25 years or a little more, she has dedicated herself in spiritual studies of Raja Yoga meditation. She is a spiritual teacher, a healer, public speaker, center in charge. She wears a number of different hats. And she practices Raja Yoga meditation, which is being taught by the Brahma Kumari's World Spiritual Organization. The way I know her is she is a loving, dedicated, selfless student of Raja Yoga meditation, and we have all benefited from her. I'm sure we will have a very nice experience today in this discussion with her. Now, Raja Yoga meditation is very unique in the sense that it is a meditation where you do get the experience of relaxation, but more importantly, it is a meditation where you are put in a spiritual path, in a spiritual journey. It is a journey which is perhaps the most important journey in our lives, and we forget. It is the journey when we start the journey inwards. It's a unique meditation practice, and if you're interested or for more details, please do reach out to us, and we will be happy to provide you with the details. As for me, my name is Shu Ben, and I have an engineering background. I had been practicing Raja Yoga meditation for the last 7 years, and immensely benefited from that practice. Well, the topic today is the only thing that is permanent is change. The only thing that is permanent is change. Is this true? So the way I understand is everything around us are changing all the time, continuously. Just to give an example, this body of yours, or this body of mine, the cells in this body are in a process of regeneration. As a matter of fact, within a period of, say, 10 to 7 years, the body regenerates itself. In other words, in one lifespan, we get multiple bodies. The body is constantly changing. So depending on that, I may be on my third or fourth body. Now, another example of constant change is if you look at the planet Earth, it's constantly rotating. So every second, it has a different orientation. So there are a lot of such examples around us, which shows that there is change all around us almost constantly. Yet, when we face change, there is an inherent resistance for the most people. There are people like Elon Musk, for instance, who are early adopters for change, who actually embrace change. But for the most people, there is an inherent resistance to change, or an ambivalent response to change. If the like for instance, if the change is favorable, like if I'm getting a promotion, my response will be favorable. I'll be happy. But if I am being transferred at a lateral position and it will going to increase my commute time, my response might not be that enthusiastic. But I'm fully aware that in a career, there will be changes. Sometimes There will be positive changes like promotion. Sometimes there will be inconveniences. Yet the response can, can be different. There's another thing I observe about changes. See, we are all bracing modernity. We live in modern houses, houses which has the most modern furniture, most modern architecture, most modern appliances. But even in that setting, in that modernity, we are hankering for antiquity. For instance, we are flocking into the antique shops to get a piece of something which is like original, as if there is a desire for something which is timeless, which is changeless, as if there is a desire for something which is more permanent, whereas there is change all around us happening continuously. Now, my question to our dear sister is, Sister Rona, what does change mean to you? Can we or do we really change? And is it necessary to change? I can repeat. What does change mean to you? Can we or do we really change? Is it necessary to change? Sister Rona.
Yeah. Very interesting topic, no? This topic of change. And what does change mean to me? There is a variety of thoughts and things that come to mind when thinking about this subject of change. Now, on the one hand, there is a variety, there is what is the word? There is a longing all the time for variety, you know, for something new, something else, something different. If we observe in the world, if you observe people around you, and even maybe if you observe yourself internally, your drivings and your motivations, there is like something that pulls you to want something different, something new, something else, someone else maybe to talk to or to be with or to watch and to learn or to be somewhere else. And even this morning, a dear friend of ours always says if there's no variety, it is like boring, it gets bored. So on the one hand, we tend to think that we like variety and something different. But at the same time, we long for things that are permanent. And we long for something solid and something of support that lasts. And that may be where the whole riddle is, and also the paradox. So on the one hand, we want permanent and feel secure and feel safe because things will not ever change. And on the other hand, we think we want change and we want variety and we want different things. Now, having said all that, if we sincerely observe life and the world in general, we see that things are changing all the time. And you just gave lots of examples, or few examples of things that are constantly changing. Even the body. Now, there is hair. Well, not that much, but there's some hair here. And 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there was also hair. But no atom of that hair that was there back then, 30 years ago, is the same as the hair that is there now. Same with the skin. The same with the molecules and the atoms of the bones and the blood vessels and the muscles. So although this body is here now, 30 years ago there was also a body, but nothing of that body, nothing of the matter of which that body consists is the same. So even this body is constantly all the time changing. And the same around us. It is a characteristic of this world that no second, no moment is the same. So things are constantly changing. Now, most of the time, we are not aware of these changes. We generally are only aware of big changes. Now, if temperature more or less stays the same, we feel the weather is the same. The weather is not the same. Even one day to the next, even within a day, there's so many fluctuations. The wind direction shifts, the heat of the sun diminishes or gets stronger, even though we might not be aware of it. So change is happening all the time. Everywhere. Now, is that a problem? We should ask ourselves. Is it a problem that things are changing all the time? Actually, the changing for this body, the constantly changing nature of the matter of this body, that is a good thing. That is why old cells are shed and new cells are formed. That is why a body can adjust to situations. That is why with growing up, bones become stronger. No, and baby getting into childhood, getting into teens and adulthood, the fact that the body can change and can change all the time, that is a good thing. But we somehow have been conditioned to not be aware and to not see with a broad enough vision that things are all the time changing, and that change is good because it leads to something. There is like a deeper significance behind everything that is happening. And we think that in certain cases we resist the change, but in many cases we don't resist the change. In many cases we are not even aware of the change. In many occasions, many occasions, we naturally flow with the change, and we are sometimes even happy for the change. It is usually in certain areas that we don't like change because we perceive that change to be bad for us. Um, and maybe we perceive it to be bad for us because we don't see with a bigger picture, from a broader perspective. Maybe if we look at, if we would be able to look at the situation from a broader perspective, we might be able to see that that change would actually be beneficial in the longer run. And so one reason why we have this ambivalent relationship with change, and therefore with life also, is because we resist certain forms of change because we don't necessarily pause and reflect deeply on the deeper significance of things and on our perspective on life and on this world. Because we have also been conditioned to think so fast and to think maybe even also very superficial in certain areas. And so we do not go to essence or to significance of things. And superficially we think, oh, this should not happen, that should not happen. Or we have a certain situation and we just want to hold on to it and want it to be like that. And in our superficial thinking, we think like that. It should be like this always, and we expect it. We want it to be like that always. But if we would see a broader perspective, we would see that this is actually not truly what is useful, not even for us. Can you imagine if this world, nothing would change ever? It would be like a still movie, one slide movie. And that slide is there all the time. Nothing would change. All the stills would be the same. It wouldn't be truly life. So change to me actually is very natural and good. But change also means things can be what? It keeps you occupied. It keeps you fascinated. It keeps you entertained in a way. You know, the inner being, because there are constantly different scenes, you kind of, this is like a journey. Every time is a new scene. Every time is a new interaction. Every time is something new. It keeps you entertained is the word. So change for human life and for human existence and for human experiences, change is essential. Now the question is, do we need to change inside? To accept change and to see the benevolence of change and to see the benefit of change, we definitely do need to change our perspective on the whole physical world and existence in the physical world. I'm not sure if that fully answers your question. You would like to comment at this stage, or?
Yes, so this is very helpful. Actually, it is setting the stage for our next context. And if it's okay with you, do you think I can move on? Okay. So with that idea and with your sharing on change in the current world, we are experiencing a lot of change and rapid change. Now, there are two sides of that change. And there is an aspect where we are kind of feeling that things are kind of collapsing. Now, let me give some more examples. Post-COVID is one scenario, but just before COVID, we had been experiencing accelerating climate change. There are ample examples of that, the tsunamis, the earthquakes, etc., etc. Everybody is familiar with it.
Wildfires.
Wildfires. Then there has been an explosion of conflict and wars. Some of the wars are reported, some of them are not reported. We get to know through other sources. We experienced a refugee crisis in Europe, where people just on one day had to leave one country, go to another country, embrace a completely new culture, a new language, a new way of living. So all the familiar surroundings change overnight. It's a feeling that things are collapsing. Then we also saw the drama of Brexit, the drama of the European Union, which was triggered by the bankruptcy happening in Greece. So things like, again, a feeling of collapsing, as if the world is coming down. Now, fast forward, COVID, February 2020, United States, we see the bankruptcy of the retail sector. Big chains, Macy's, Sears, slowly folding up some of their outlets. There is a drop in the shopping. There is drop in consumer spending. Consumer spending in this country, 68% of the GDP. If that shrinks, economy shrinks. Another feeling of collapsing. Domestic violence going up. In some places reported as high as 20%. Schools closing. Schools closing, school atmosphere in some areas is like a safe haven for dysfunctional families. Your other infrastructure like places of worship, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques are not accessible anymore. People who are not religious, they'll go to restaurants for a warm meal with their loved ones. They cannot do that the way they did before. So once again, another feeling that things are kind of closing down. And people are slowly losing faith in their current infrastructure that was their belief system, that was their support. So this is the doomed scenario. But while this is happening, there is some very interesting developments as well. For instance, the popularity of mindfulness. Mindfulness is now a mainstream topic. People don't shy away. In fact, they are engaging in mindful activities a lot more. Meditation is now being prescribed by the doctors and medical practitioners, not as a fringe activity, as an integral part of the healing process. People in the lockdown mode got a chance to reflect. Sister, you were saying people were thinking so fast. They got a chance to pause. In that process, they revisited the wisdom of ancient civilizations. And one of the things that they found, and that we find in the ancient civilization, one characteristic is there is a symbiotic relationship between human being, the divine, and nature. That is there, this balance and this harmony with nature and the divine is there in each ancient civilization. And people are asking these serious questions. They are asking these deeper questions which are much beyond the naked, blatant, materialistic existence. They're asking for answers where they have started thinking beyond just this physical existence. Because if it is only materialism, then it's not working for them anymore. It is not making sense anymore. And this lack of meaning is a crisis. They're craving for some deeper meaning of sustenance. And when there is a crisis and there is this meaning is not there, when it doesn't make any sense, this crisis itself creates a stimulus for something new to happen. And I think we are in that situation where people are very open to embrace something new. Even the word emergency, the word emerge is kind of embedded, as if in an emergency. See, collapse doesn't happen into nothing. With a collapse, something new emerges. So with that scenario, it almost feels like, the tale of two cities. It is the best of times and it is the worst of times, as if we are experiencing both at the same time. So in that context, sister, my question is, what is happening to humanity from a spiritual perspective?
Let us take it simple, first. And let us try and understand the nature of this world and the nature of our existence in this world. These are big, normally philosophical questions, but essential to be clear on these basic things. To understand change and to know how to deal with change and what is happening to humanity at this moment in time, we first of all need to know what is this model that we have of life. And the spiritual knowledge is very clear about things. Now, first of all, what spiritual knowledge tells us, there is a physical dimension and there is a non-physical dimension. And this body, for example, is part of the physical dimension. The sounds that you make, this Zoom, our interactions and countries and politics and sports and education and sickness and the health system, educational systems and financial systems and different countries, it is all part of the physical dimension. But there is one who is experiencing it all. Not this body itself doesn't have the capacity to experience. There is someone who is making sense of all this information. There is someone who is making sense of whatever comes in through our sense organs. The body itself doesn't say, I am hungry. It is the invisible experiencer, the inner being, who is saying, I am hungry, or I want something different, or I don't like this. There is someone who is experiencing that change. And that being is non-physical. A spiritual being or soul, there are many names that we can use for that. The being of consciousness. And that being has come in this world, this changing world, this world of matter. And that being has come and the being will go again. So the inner being, we used to point this as the place of functioning, the place of operating of the soul. That being is like a guest in this body, a guest in this world, a traveler. Now, and once we get that clear, there is matter and there is the spiritual being of consciousness, the soul, the invisible traveler. If we get that clear, our relationship with this world is of this traveler, a spiritual being who is like a guest in this world for a short time. And then this being will leave this physical dimension and withdraw back into the non-physical dimension. If we understand that, then it becomes clear how to deal with change. A guest visits a place and it is nice. Everything is nice. It is extra. Whether it is red walls and blue chairs, that is interesting, it's nice. Whether it is yellow chairs and black walls, it's just a different scene. And one who is in that guest mode can deal with change. And if it doesn't change, that is fine also. Because that mode, internal mode, is of everything is extra. It is like a gift. It is like extra. And so if that is our mode, even towards this body, and this body changes all the time. It grows bigger from a baby size, it grows bigger, and then after a while wrinkles come and hair turns gray and body becomes smaller. Body changes all the time. For one who is in the guest consciousness, this is a wonder. This body is a wonder. Nice extra gift to use, a vehicle to use for a specific period of time. Everyone around, the interactions, the dynamics in the world, changing scenes in society, changing scenes in relationships. Internally, it is experienced as extra gift. Because the soul has come from a different dimension and will return to that different dimension. And here, temporarily, for an extra experience. No? Now you're talking about things collapsing. Now, if a guest starts to behave like the owner, starts to say, this is my apartment. No, they come and visit you and start saying, this is my apartment, this is mine, and this fridge is mine, and this bedroom occupies your bedroom and your closet and confiscates all your clothes, takes your key and says, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. And then on top of it, abuses it, misuses it, and indulges in it. You will say, look, you have to get moving now, or you will call the police for this guest. Now, something similar has happened with these guests visiting, because not just me, the soul, a guest, but all human souls are guests in this world. But we have forgotten that we are guests. And we have started to behave like we own this world and like we own matter. And then we have not only started to behave like it is mine, we start to identify. We start to say, my value depends on this, and I need this, and I want this, and I desire this, and I am this body. And we can use however we want. And then we get into indulgence, desires and expectations, and we want more. And if we don't get, we get angry, and then we use violence to get more. And we get into greed. And so this is like an illness going on at the level of consciousness. The spiritual being who is a guest here for an experience, to come and share vibrations of spirituality, nothing else, has started to create bondages here, started to create attachments here, and started to go into the confusion as if we will be here forever and that we can own things here. And that is like a wrong relationship with matter, wrong relationship with the physical dimension. And because we have started to misuse and abuse and get into all kinds of indulgences and overuse, there is a reaction from nature, and there is a reaction from matter, and there is even a reaction from the social structures. And it may appear that it is like collapsing, but it is like balancing forces that are there to almost signal souls to wake up. Hey, you are a guest here. You don't truly own anything. And this is not a respectful way to be as a guest. And maybe it's time you have to get moving. So the present so-called maybe collapsing structures are more signals from the physical universe on all levels to tell us it is time to change your attitude. It is time to change your perspective. And it's telling all of us, me means inner being, souls, the guests, have to wake up to the fact that we are guests. We have to wake up that we have come from a different dimension. Have to wake up that we are not this body and these physical personalities. We have to wake up to the fact that we are spiritual beings. And that everything we are trying to get in this physical world, maybe we already have at a different level. That peace may be part of our innate nature. That freedom is natural for the soul who is awake. We try to make ourselves secure in a changing world. That is mad. How can I be secure if things are constantly changing? If my sense of security is based on things that are changing, I will always be insecure and anxious. And we haven't even talked about human interactions and physical relationships yet, which is a whole other dynamic of complications and change. And so maybe to truly understand what is happening with humanity at this moment in time, we need to go back to basic understandings which are spiritual. There is a physical dimension, there is a non-physical dimension. There is this physical body which is part of the physical dimension, but the real self is this spiritual being who is come in this body, uses this body, and then leaves. But has come in the physical world and will leave again at some stage in time. We are guests here. And maybe the physical universe is telling us, hey, you have to get back into a proper guest awareness and guest attitude and guest vision, and not just abuse and use and destroy everything here. And nature reacts to that by unpredictable and unexpected big changes, so that we as if are shaken up. That
Yes, sister. I mean, this is very nice because it is providing the context that what is happening with humanity is because of not having that perspective of the two dimensions and having forgotten that. So how to awaken that?
If we could wake up to the fact, no, that we are these spiritual beings who are timeless, who are like invisible travelers from another dimension.
Mhm.
Our nature is peace. Beings who are immortal and who have just come to visit in this physical world. Our sense of security is based on the fact that all of this is extra. We already exist as divine beings of light. Now, when we get into identifications and into the confusion, then ego takes birth. And ego is obsessed with this physical world. But ego is all the time insecure and creating lots of limited desires, which will just further lead to destruction. And destruction just brings more destruction and invites destruction. And then we don't know what to do. But maybe all of that, it's just pushing us to wake up. And you were saying all these things are happening in the world, but at the same time, there is more interest than ever in meditation, more interest than ever in certain spiritual practices. But we need to be accurate and clear and sincere in that. But nature is kind of forcing us.
Yeah, yeah. Nature is kind of forcing us. And sister, I mean, just to, the fact that we have identified ourselves so much deeply with the physical world, just to build that, that aspect that how we have evolved in this path of evolution, in this journey. I mean, we have seen, we have come from no television to black and white to color television to internet to smartphones to putting people on the moon. Now we are about to put people in Mars. We can land rockets down on water. We have electric cars. All these are physical activities. These are huge, great milestones, which is feeding the ego and getting us more closely aligned with the physical world. I'm not undermining this one bit, but this is perhaps that thing that forces us or takes us into identifying with the physical world. But there is some untold story too, which needs to be told. For instance, what has happened with our interaction with nature, for instance. Only 10,000 years back, the freely living animals, they comprised of 99% of the biomass of the world. 1% was human beings. 99% freely living animals, 1% humans. Fast forward today, human beings and the animals whom they consider as their products and property constitute 98% of the biomass. Freely living animals is 2%. It's clear evidence that we have stole the world from those freely living animals for us. That's one example of why we have got ourselves so much aligned with the physical dimension and forgotten about the spiritual or the invisible dimension. Another example, the rainforests in the Amazon area. The rainforest in the Amazon area, we are cutting at the rate of 1 acre per second. Just to give a perspective, 1 acre is almost the size of a football field. And why? So that the animals can graze, so that we can use the land to use genetically modified soybeans, which can be fed to the cows, pigs, chickens, and farm-raised fish.
Mm.
These rainforests are like the lungs of Mother Earth. It takes the carbon dioxide and gives oxygen. So just imagine to our body, if I start replacing part of my lungs, what is going to happen to the body? This is what we are doing to Mother Earth. Now fast forward, February 2020. Here we have coronavirus. And now what do we see? We see that there is spike in alcohol consumption. We also see a list of essential services. There are a lot of important items there, but there are three items that stand out. One is casinos, bars, and guns. So how are these essential services? I can only think of them as essential if I am addicted to gambling, if I'm addicted to violence, if I'm addicted to alcohol. There's no other way I can think about it. But when these things, which is form part of our culture, are missing, then only it comes to the surface, right on our face, that this is what we are. This is what I am thinking as a huge wake up call. When we can go and remove the veneer and the veil of the apparent progress that we have made, the real truth which is behind comes out, and we say, what have we done? What have we done? So that is the gloom scenario. That is a scenario where I am saying why we are so much closely aligned with the physical world. Now, there is an underlying nice silver lining to it too. That is the power of the unity of action. And what I mean by that is the unity of cooperation, the unity of intention. See, in the past, whenever big things have happened, I just take the example of, think of the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall at one point was incomprehensible that it will come down. But when it came down, there was a merging of a couple of things. Perestroika was coming in, communism was losing its teeth, it was not making sense. It was a convergence of individual personal beliefs and feelings into a aggregate higher combined experience. So when something which is not relevant becomes absolutely apparent, you cannot hold it anymore. It collapses on its own for its own reason. So something like that, I am thinking that we are at that point, which is brought about, as you say, by nature, perhaps COVID. One microorganism, yes, we can put people on Mars, but one microorganism we couldn't handle, or one microorganism brings the whole world to its knees, or it also unites. So when I walk around in my community, I see banners. We are one Bethlehem. We are one Albany. We are one Rensselaer. So it feels to me that there is that spirit and that desire of uniting. And I'm having a feeling that when we unite, our best comes out. And when we unite, there
Necesito que
is.
intérprete.
I need to go slow, right, sister? Sorry. When we unite, there is that change in consciousness which can bring about something big.
Hermano, perdóneme un momentico. I'm sorry. Could you tell Anita, please, to make me interpret? I have problem with the internet and I needed to change phone so
Yeah.
I can.
I'm trying, Sister Matilda. I'll make you. Sorry about the interruption. Please continue.
No problem. So going back to the example of the Berlin Wall, and sister, I'm going to pose the question to you. We have 10 minutes. Coming back to the Berlin Wall thing, when there is that first, like individual experiences is becoming a collective experience, it almost feels like the effect of that critical mass. I also have a feeling of destiny here. Destiny in the sense that, as we say that nothing can be more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So I almost feel that when that happened, that idea had its time. And it's almost like a similar time is we are getting ready for it. This is intuitively I'm kind of feeling. And so my question to you, sister, is, can spirituality specifically have an impact to change the world?
The spiritual understanding actually is even further. The world is a reflection of our internal factors. Now, and so if our internal factors change, this world will change. And of course, there are many angles to that and many different aspects to that. But in essence, if we are in our highest state of consciousness and we are in the benevolent nature, as if the angelic and the divine within the soul is emerged and is lived, then nature and the world will be happy with that and will respond to that in a favorable way. But if we are stuck in all these egos and confusion and abusive behavior and desires and demands and exploitation and competition, then matter has to counteract that, steady us and balance us. And so the internal shift, that is what is spirituality is all about. To, in simple words, it is waking up to the fact that we are not these physical personalities, but we are timeless spiritual beings. And with that perspective, with that consciousness, with that attitude, and with that vision, approach the physical dimension, then we ourselves will interact differently. We will act differently, but also nature and matter will respond favorably, but also others. Now, if one person is truly, truly, truly wise and peaceful, others will react and interact with that person differently. But also the vibration of that peace and the vibration of that wisdom will influence this body. No? For example, we all know something happens with the body and you get the label, oh, this is stress, or I'm stressed out, or stress is a big factor of all kinds of physical illness. Now, if there is no stress, body itself will be in a better shape. So our state of consciousness, our state of mind affects this world, influences this world, maybe even creates this world. And so if we shift internally back to that pure spiritual consciousness, back to an awareness of brotherhood, back to an awareness of being timeless, divine beings of light who have come here to visit, then we free the physical world from our ego, our violence, our anger, jealousy, and greed. Now, if we free society from greed, how much different would it not be? And so to change the world, we had to change in here. And that real change, structural change at the level of consciousness, I feel is only truly possible through spiritual knowledge and spiritual practices. Otherwise, it is just a nice philosophy.
Sister, sorry to interrupt you. I get this part that at the individual level, and it is affecting the body, it is affecting the nature, so we are freeing up the nature. I get this. But this is at the individual level.
Mm.
The question for me to you is, do you see we are in the situation where there is the potential and we are ready to do it collectively? So, when we see that huge flock of birds flowing in the sky in one wonderful geometry, there is that harmony there. It is, are we like, just like the individual you talked about who has aligned, is as a community, we are able to align ourselves with one thought, as if like 1,000 souls are meditating, but as 1,000 bodies are meditating, 1,000 people are meditating, it is as if like 1,000 people are meditating, but there is one soul.
Mm.
Do you see something like that? I'm thinking in terms of this effort, bringing about a collective effort, bringing about a structural change in the world.
Definitely, definitely. But it is not a superficial thing, that internal change. And at this moment, I'm not seeing the commitment on a worldwide scale to that true inner change. No, many people talk about materialism, and that we are too materialistic. But everyone still likes their comforts. No, it is so obvious, the impacts of human behavior on climate change, the impact of our choices of food on the quality of nature and of our planet. But how many are truly ready to give up their comforts? So there is the collective power, absolutely. But it requires a sincerity and an accuracy in internal shift, which has to translate also in a shift of behavior. And at this moment, I'm not seeing that. When COVID-19 started, kind of shook up everybody, and people are trying to be more simple and spending less. But it is under that forceful, the situation forces us. Moment that would become relaxed, people are relaxed again. And of course, I'm generalizing now, because at the same time, I also see that every day there are few more people who are truly, sincerely wanting to make that inner shift. But there is definitely power in that. Now, not too long ago, we were talking about this phenomena that is called the shift of consciousness, the jump of consciousness, sorry. And this is a phenomena that is being studied by behavioral scientists that study human behavior, but also study certain animal behaviors. And what they did is, some monkeys in the South Pacific, on islands in the South Pacific, they studied behavior of monkeys. And one of what is it? One of the tests that they did is they teach those monkeys to wash their roots and food that they eat in the ocean before they eat it. So they taught monkeys this. And once the number of monkeys that were taught this and were doing this naturally reaches a certain number, say 50 monkeys have learned to do this and do this naturally on a daily basis, then other monkeys on other islands naturally started to do that without having seen that behavior, without being taught that. So there is this phenomenon throughout history, human history, you see it also. For example, the wheel was discovered in certain areas, different areas of the world at the same time. Fire, same thing. Atomic energy was discovered in two different places at the same time, but also artistic ideas between artists who don't have exchange with each other. They have kind of similar times getting similar ideas. There is a kind of, once a certain idea has power, it gets communicated and it pulls others also. Others get the same thoughts, others get the same ideas. So there is this phenomena, so that if there is like a certain powerful idea that is held, others pick it up. And more people holding that idea in their mind, in their consciousness, more will pick it up. So that phenomena is visible. But it also doesn't only work for the positive, but it also works for the negative. And so this is what we see at the moment, this spiritual awakening. That nucleus has grown and it is almost unstoppable. And once it reaches a certain critical mass, it will definitely spread. And on top of that, external situations, life situations are helping us, are pushing people to explore other possibilities. I hope that little bit clarifies. It's a fascinating topic. We could talk all night, but time is up.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to say something, or we will close with some moments. Maybe you make some final comments.
No, sister, I'm very thankful for this opportunity. Yes, I have got a lot of clarifications, and so we are on this journey. We are still not. I was feeling that you perhaps will say that maybe COVID was one step that has pushed us, but it is not good enough because we don't see that sincerity in making that commitment or making that internal shift for that critical mass. But we have moved forward. Maybe another COVID-20 will do the trick, but then wait till then.
There are two ways that people learn, either through pain or through wisdom. And that is where the individual difference is. We can choose to learn through wisdom and not through pain. And more individuals make that shift through wisdom, then we can shift external situations also. Okay, thank you. This was nice. Subhenbhai, we should do it more regular. But let's close with a moment of reflection and just bring back things to simple, basic understandings. To deal with change and changing scenarios, one has to live from the inside out instead of from the outside in. And inside out means create that self-awareness that here is invisible being of light, spiritual being who is like a traveler, innately divine in nature, belonging to the Supreme, belonging to that invisible dimension, a God-like being of light. waking up again to this true self, the timeless being of light. The traveler is also an observer, observer of this whole physical dimension. But the traveler has a home beyond, a father and mother, a parent, supreme parent beyond. And the world of change will continue to change. But the traveler is timeless. A being of peace. This being is the real self, the soul. Thank you. Thank everyone who is joining us. Have a good evening.